So if you've been told that growing your practice or growing your clinic means getting more clients, more leads, more clients, more client acquisition, okay, this is a mindset. This is a conventional advice, okay, that I actually think is inherently wrong. It's one that I was bought into for a number of years, but I want to flip that on its head a little bit. I want to show you why the most profitable, profit being the key word here, the most profitable and lucrative clinics are not actually focusing on client acquisition, but instead they're focusing on client retention. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you why your client retention is actually your best source of new leads, new customers, new clients. So most practice owners believe that the path to growth or the path to scaling is about client acquisition, and that is where they are pouring their time, their attention, and their money into. But in reality, the real growth lever might actually be the clients that you already have. And I say might because I recognize that every brand or clinic can be a little bit different, but there are some gaping holes and some massive opportunities that I have found that most practices are actually, it's like their blind spot. They don't see it. They often look at retention as customer service, if you will, when in fact retention is actually your client acquisition strategy. So what I want to talk about is the 4-step system that I've used to help clients not just build traction in their current business, but to actually grow and scale, validate offers, and then build from there. So right off the bat, and I know this might be a little counterintuitive, but oftentimes the game of chasing clients actually keeps you stuck. When it comes to client acquisition strategies, and for myself, I often emphasize a mix of organic traffic as well as paid traffic. But nonetheless, wherever you are starting from, okay, acquisition is a game of unpredictability. You can often be guessing at the offer, the platform, the demographics, and on top of all of that, you are guessing at the risk involved. I don't just mean risk capital, but I mean the risk, like literally that sensation. How much risk can you actually tolerate? And with regard to that risk and guessing, in addition to the money that you are paying for ads, whether it's Google ads or Meta ads or whatever it is, in addition to all that testing, what you are also paying for is the ignorance tax. And you are paying for that in wasted ad spend, wasted bandwidth, and essentially time, right? So again, right off the bat, I want to name something that most, I would think educated business owners probably already know or they can intuit, is that client acquisition is a more expensive game than client retention. I think the studies or statistics talk about how client acquisition is like 5 times more expensive. How they quantify that, I don't know, but I think intuitively we understand, right? If I have somebody that's in my care and I want to upsell them, and I don't mean that in like a salesy or sleazy way, but if I want to move them into the next level of my care, it's easier to do that when they are already a customer of mine. What you don't want to happen is end up on this hamster wheel of client acquisition where you get a client, you lose a client, and then you have to pay again, right? Any of that ignorance tax to get the next client. And unfortunately, in today's world of technology, AI, social media, right? Like the mechanisms, the levers of which we are utilizing paid traffic, client acquisition strategies, those levers, they change constantly, right? Like algorithms, keywords, right? Compliance stuff, like there's all sorts of things that's changing all the time. So one of the things that we can, to some degree, ensure that isn't changing is our relationship with the client themselves. And to be clear, I'm not saying that acquisition or even paid acquisition is a bad thing. I do it with all my clients. In fact, that's where I'm trying to lead everyone towards, right? And it's something that everyone is going to have to do, again, because of the changing landscape and the information or misinformation, that the public is essentially exposed to on a day-to-day basis. Like, I'm not saying that paid acquisition is bad. I think what gets lost somewhere is the order of operations. And what I want to show you here is how client retention can actually be your best lever, if you will, to focus on first before we overwhelm ourselves, probably even burn ourselves out with client acquisition. Now, before we go further, I want to talk about another mindset shift, right? And again, for me, mindset only goes so far, motivation only goes so far, but I do want to talk about a very specific shift that myself as a practitioner, right? That like this is something that eluded me for a long time, but thankfully I've had some incredible mentors along the way. And ultimately it comes down to this: all individuals, unless you are literally in the health and wellness space, and even for some of those people, unless you are in the space, you are always going to have to allocate or dedicate some of your income to health maintenance. And I guess my position is that for you as the practitioner, wouldn't you like to be the one to supply that maintenance? And again, I'm being very specific here because I don't mean this as supplying their maintenance as a form of codependency. I'm not like that. When I was a coach, I was all about root cause health. I'm the same way when it comes to marketing, root cause marketing. Okay, but my point is that we are not helping people maintain their health out of codependency. We're doing it out of love. Now, on that note, just to throw a little bit of marketing education here in case you don't already know this, okay? There's a phrase that I use with clients, and this is LTV, okay? This means lifetime value. This has to do with the amount of money that a customer or consumer will spend with you over the lifetime of their tenure with you, if you will, right? So just remember that, where it's like lifetime value means how much money somebody will spend with me over the lifetime of me interacting with them. And again, everything I'm talking about right now, it's not a sales angle. This is literally true. I mean, one of the things that I used to emphasize to my clients, I was very upfront about this in a very nonchalant way because it was true, was that the longer you are with me, the healthier you are going to become, both in body and in mind, because I'm an elevated resource for you. And as a practitioner who is, again, practicing, right? Practitioners, we practice as we are improving our own internal resources. We can then give that to clients. So all I'm saying, I'm going back to this lifetime value mindset shift, where it's like, oh, you know what? Somebody in theory could always be with me, so I want to be there for them. Okay, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. I call this the retention engine, and this is where I'm going to map this out for you in 4 steps. Now, step 1 is about building the value ladder. This starts with stopping of the selling of sessions, stopping the selling of sessions. I know that sounds weird, and I think a lot of people conventionally have moved beyond this. They recognize the limitations or the finite benefits of just selling sessions, because ultimately when you start doing that, you start commoditizing your sessions or your session price, and then people start looking for, like, I shouldn't say start looking for, because once they're already with you, they have a great relationship with you. But in the beginning, if you're just selling sessions, if that's all it is, it's a commoditized cost. People are just going to go and look for whatever the next best price is without knowing anything else about you. Okay, so we need to move past selling sessions. Then we need to move past selling time. Now, what that means is, like, and this is actually where I think a lot of people are, where it's like, how long is this care going to take? Could be months, okay? And this still could be sessions, but it's just kind of disguised as time, right? So it's like this program is going to be weeks, or it's going to be months. When in fact, what I want to encourage people to do is move into this sense of transformation. Don't sell the session, sell the transformation. I know that can be a little tropey, but it is a mindset shift that needs to occur, where it's like, you know what? I need to be very clear about what metrics I have, where I'm trying to get a client, how can I articulate that to them. And yes, that could be quantitative, right? Blood work, right? Pain management. I mean, maybe again, your pain being gone, or maybe a lower threshold. But like, I'll use pain as an example. Maybe I'm bringing somebody out of pain, and then that's the pain point, right? But then I need to move them into better movement or better care from that. So, and again, I know this can be a little bit broad here, but ultimately we need to get out of this shift from selling our time, and we need to actually sell the transformation. And the way that we do that is we productize the knowledge and the skill that we have. And I won't be able to go too far into the weeds in this particular video. I'll save that for another one, but you are such an incredible resource. And because you're not a marketer per se, or a product developer, you might not know how to get all of that amazingness from here and into the actual product landscape. And that, again, that I'm trying not to go down too many rabbit holes, but essentially it is about understanding, how can I take what's in here and bring it out into the world for my clients to maybe extend that customer lifetime value. Okay, step 2, as we've gotten better at productizing our knowledge and our wisdom, we need to map the lifetime arc. We need to understand, how long does it take to get from point A to point B, or from this rung to this rung? And by the way, you don't have to have all of this figured out, like from start to finish. Sometimes we have clients, right, that are more proactive than others, and we need to actually develop protocols and programs for a particular client like that. But it gives us a great frame of reference to productize further, and now we can build that, and that is now part of our ecosystem that we are moving clients through. But the key point is, before a client finishes their or reaches their current goal, you need to have some idea of what comes next. And again, this is probably a first step in productizing your knowledge. Where do I take somebody next? And to look at this another way, we could look at it from the client's perspective, right? So we need to shift their mindset from "are we done?" to "what's next?" And that can happen in a variety of ways, but we want to think of it more motivational, right? Not like discouraging, like, "oh, I'm still broken." And again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds of this productization exercise, but one of the best things that you could do when it comes to establishing what those rungs are, what are the outcomes that you want? Okay, again, I gave you some examples, right? Quantitative, could be blood work, it could be data driven. What type of outcomes do we want from that standpoint? Could be qualitative, right? Could be from a movement or sensory perception, kinesthesia, like it could be anything like that. But ultimately it's like, what are the outcomes associated from a motivational standpoint with this particular rung? And then what outcomes are associated with this next rung? And that might be a great place for you just to start to map it out. What are the outcomes associated with this? Okay, so step one is about building the value ladder, right? Building those rungs. Step two is about mapping out the lifetime arc of what that looks like. Hey, this is very much about productizing, right? Now, step three is about harvesting. Okay, we are harvesting clients within that client window. Again, I know why you're here is to understand more about client acquisition via client retention. But step three, this is really where it happens. We need to understand all of the different opportunities. I'll use that word, opportunities, to be able to harvest client referrals within that particular window. And here's another way to think about this. Most times, this is a very basic way to think about this, is that most times we're thinking about gathering a client testimonial. Testimonials are great. Hey, fantastic for SEO, like we need them, but oftentimes we're thinking about that when the client is done with us. And while testimonials are great and we want to be prudent about getting those, one of the best times to gather a client testimonial or to feature their work is when they're with us, right? Maybe in their first or second or third win. So this is something, again, that I think most practitioners are missing, is that we don't understand all of the opportunities. I use the example of a testimonial, but how about being featured in our content, tagging certain clients, having them tag us in certain social media posts? Maybe there's something more robust, like a newsletter, email, right? Some sort of resource that particular client can give to their friends, and that is more impactful when they are within your care, not just when they're done. And again, I want to emphasize here, and this is something that I emphasize for all my clients, is that word of mouth is very much a rite of passage. I don't want to get into the weeds about like paid acquisition strategies, but one of the most difficult aspects of the ignorance tax that I was talking about is validating your offer. When you're launching something new to the market or new to your community, we need to have a validated offer. And one of the best ways to do that is actually through word of mouth. This literally is a rite of passage for probably any and all health-based businesses. And what I'm trying to communicate is that we want to engineer this experience rather than just like hoping for the best or hoping that we have it. And I do want to like kind of hone in on that word engineer. We are engineering different experiences, different ways to feed that client retention and client referral pipeline. And there are all sorts of ways that we can get creative around that. Now, step 4, I want to talk about reinvestment. Okay, and again, I want to highlight that paid acquisition is it's table stakes. Like, this is something that any and all, I believe, health practices that want to grow are going to have to invest in some capacity. But as a starting point, reinvest in the leads in the pipeline that are already working for you. Again, going back to that validated offer component, we can invest in acquisition strategies that are actually targeted at people that are already in our ecosystem. And going back to step 3, how have we engineered people to be in our ecosystem without just relying on like random cold outreach, randomized cold outreach. And again, I'm not opposed to those kinds of things, but my goodness, there's like this massive chunk of opportunity, money being left on the table essentially for practitioners and business owners that are not engineering client retention experiences, like improving their fulfillment, improving the way in which they are relating or building a relationship with their current clients. Now, I want to name a sensation, a felt sensation that comes up for a lot of people when I'm talking about this. Let's say like an initial consult, right? Is that like, oh, I need clients right now? Well, I always say like building a business out of scarcity and urgency, like it's not often that we're making good decisions around that. But it's worth highlighting that what I'm actually talking about here is actually not about just the long game. This is actually faster. It's just a mindset shift because we're so stuck in this idea that like, oh, I need to post more, or I need to post more on social media, which is a whole other like conversation around like, is it your business? Is it your personal brand? Like whole other conversation there. And then we need to talk about like Google ads and like, is the algorithm gonna like me? You know, so like there's a lot of conversations around that, but there's far less friction. Like I don't know, like a 20-to-1 less friction on reinvesting, or engineering that client that client retention type of dynamic, where I'm actually investing in strategies that help build my network around the clients that I already have. So again, this is a mindset shift where it's like I'm not actually talking about the slower, longer play. I am actually talking about the faster route here. So in a nutshell, more clients is not necessarily the answer. More of the right clients might be a better way to phrase that, but ultimately it's about keeping what we have, extending that customer lifetime value, right? Let's revisit our steps real quick. Step 1, build the value ladder. Step 2, map the lifetime arc. Step 3, arguably the most important, which is to harvest within that client window. And step 4, then reinvest, engineer those experiences, okay, of client retention. If you do want to go further with this, I totally invite you to visit that link in the bio. You can book a free 15-minute call with me. I can take a look at your business, your brand, your clinic, and help you identify where your biggest blind spots are. I always encourage you, like and subscribe. My name is Jaron Bruman. Appreciate you. Talk to you on the next one.